Liars, the Apple Drop album review. Let's chat about it. Hey guys, what's going on? John here from What's Spinning, here to chat about this latest album from Liars, Australia, via Brooklyn-based experimental rock legends, headed by their own sole original member, Mr. Angus Andrew. And over the years, they have been a real spectacle, for me at least. I mean, for me, growing up in New York City in the early 2000s and hearing albums like They Threw Us in a Trench and Stuck a Monument on Top of Us and We Were Wrong So We Drowned was absolutely stunning. But for me, it was around the time of Drums Not Dead that Liars began wowing me with their conceptual albums and their experimental style. These were wildly weird albums with bizarre narratives, but at the same time, they were inviting. And while not a high point for some, I thought their self-titled album was them on cruise control in the best way. But then, I feel like around that time, the mid-2010s, me and Liars just started getting into this back and forth battle of me being kind of into what they were doing and being really just not into them at all. Like, I know people love Sister World, but for me, it's always been one of their sloppier releases. Truthfully, I thought the bulkier and much more electronically tinged WIXIW was much more interesting. At the time, no, it wasn't what I originally gravitated towards with them, but it was something different, something exciting. And trust me, I get why most people don't like Mess, but come on, pro-anti-anti hits so hard still. The last few years, Liars have completely just lost me entirely. I thought TFCF was the band's most tame release in years. And their follow-up album titles with the word fountain, honestly, it was certainly a little bit better, but not by much. So much so, I completely almost wrote off this album entirely. Did not even take the time to listen to it. But truth be told, I thought the singles leading up to this album were actually pretty intriguing. Let's chat about this thing. This album starts off with Start, and it's actually a really cool intro. I love the pacing here, I love how dreary and strange it is, and Angus's performance here is a knockout. He sounds awesome. I mean, right off the bat, we are less than one track in, and I feel like this is a real fresh start for Liars. It's a little electronic, it's a little artsy. I mean, it's not hectic or wild, but it's got so much intrigue and just seemingly so many little details. I love it. I could say that and so much more about Slow and Turn Inward. This track is so whimsical and full of mystery. It also, once again, has really great pacing to it. It's odd and it's obtuse, but like the album cover, listening to this track makes me feel like I'm exploring some deep, dark cave that just has new things to discover at every turn. It's nothing wild, it's nothing heady, but Liars just sounds so focused. Big Appetite might be the best track here. It's also the darkest and most vicious sounding track here. I mean, as far as a post-punk track goes, look no further. It's still got fantastic pacing to it, but I love how over the top and practically gothic this track comes off. It is genuinely out there. This is, for my money, the sound for Liars in 2021. I really love From What the Never Was as well. The off-kilter pacing and the airy instrumental are a nice treat. I don't know what it is, why Liars sounds so focused, but even Angus, his performance here just sounds so rejuvenated. But it remains a completely hypnotic and mesmerizing experience. This album, in a lot of ways, is a really nice surprise. Now, this album isn't a completely refreshed Liars. There are some weak points. For example, I have never really been into Sequoia. Ever since this track dropped, it hasn't really been my cup of tea. Look, if you're into their more twisted, more weird material, you might love this. But this reminds me of everything in the last few years that I haven't been into from Liars. I don't like Angus's performance, and I feel like the instrumental is limp. I mean, yes, some of the moments in the second half are a little bit better, but still not my cup of tea. And Star Search is where I draw the line completely. This is the worst track here. This is really obnoxious outside of a few synths here and there. Those aren't that bad. But outside of that, it sounds like this is like pulling teeth for Liars to come out with. It's so slow. It's so boring. And once again, as far as this goes, this reminds me of everything about TFCF that I wasn't into it. And the last minute on this track is completely getting at my last nerve. Leisure War, not really that into this as well. This is kind of ugly and not in a early 2000s fun Liars sort of way. I think there's like maybe a couple of cool ideas on this track. You know, it's constantly folding in on itself though. And New Planets, New Undoings as a finale is just I feel like it's their heart's in the right place, but it just doesn't really come full circle for me. The atmosphere on this track is insane. I love it. But the vocals here, oh man, you really you really shouldn't have. They're some of the most obnoxious on this entire album. This track would have been 1,000 times more effective. It's just an instrumental finale. Like they try so much on this track, it just ends up detracting from the atmosphere, which is the best thing about it. Outside of that, though, much like a lot of Liar's best work, this album is a very interesting blend of just enough out there, just enough experimental art rock, and some pretty accessible post-punk. My Pulse to Ponder freaking rips. It's raw, it's got a great riff to it. I love how winding and dangerous this comes out. Listen, this isn't anything wildly new from the Book of Angus Andrew, but if you've been sleeping on the last few years of Liars, give this a shot. King of the Crooks, on the other hand, one of the more artsy tracks here. I love how fluid and practically jazzy this comes off. It's not the most lively track here, but it's a really great reminder of what Liars can do when they're not pummeling you from all sides. And he's fascinating. It's just so murky, just so lonely. This album has a lot going for it. And I could say so much of the same about Acid Crow. This track is so desolate, so final sounding. It sounds like something out of the 1-0-Tricks Point Never catalog. It's eerie, it's strange, it sounds like it has a million layers to it. Once again, it reminds you of what Liars can do in a much, more subdued capacity. Slow burner for sure, but it's infinitely rewarding. So yeah, honestly, like 6 months ago, I was not looking forward to a new Liars project, but I'm glad I took the time to listen to this because in a lot of ways, they get a sort of soft reset on this album, a little bit of a fresh start, and it reminds me a lot of what I enjoyed about early albums from Liars. No, it's nothing wildly new or bold or dangerous or exciting or out of control or out of the box or anything wild, but it is a very, very solid art rock and post-punk album, one that really does a great job of putting to tape the weirder side of Liars, but also making it rather accessible, which is something I've always applauded them for doing. If you've slept on them in the last couple of years, give this a shot. It's certainly not perfect, but it's actually got a lot going for it. I'm feeling a decent 7 on this album, but let me know what you guys think down below. If you liked the video, be sure to give us a like, give us a subscribe, and let me know down below what you would like for me to chat about in the future. And until next time, have a great day, guys.